Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 143 in my RLDR Custom Creations YouTube channel. It is the weekly edition, and in this weekly edition, this is designed for people who often work with students in their shops, or you're a student in a shop. So if you want to see what this is all about, all you have to do is stay tuned. Well, working with students in the shop has been basically my whole career, spending 32 years in the high school system here, or middle or public school system. And now that I'm retired, I'm still working with students a little bit in my own shop. In fact, they just left about an hour ago. And I thought it was important to make this video. First of all, sadly, I worry about the future of school divisions teaching a subject like industrial arts. I am concerned. There will always be places that teach, in my opinion, the trade areas like the welding. Welding's been a really good one, and there's lots of need for good welders. The home building programs, I think, will probably be around for a bit yet, but the standard small town, typically small town, multi-activity industrial arts lab, I think is in danger, and that saddens me. First of all, why is teaching industrial arts so important? First of all, well, not necessarily first of all, but one of the things that is so important is the skills that are taught in that class. How to measure, how to shape, how to make something out of wood, or metal, how to think things through and problem solve. I'd argue that the project or the skills are almost secondary to, first of all, the problem solving, as I've already mentioned. Super important. Kids learn how to do that with practical and cheap materials. You can problem solve in just about every subject. In math, it's a little harder because there is always a right answer. But in some things, when you're talking industrial arts and more into the art side, there isn't always a clear pathway. So kids get to make decisions, and they need to look at things and see what looks good and confer with others and ask them what looks good. And there's constant input from others and from themselves as to what's important. But I think the biggest thing, and I saw this in my classroom all the time once I figured out what I was really doing, is it's the confidence that you build in students. The confidence to look at a problem, to break it into pieces, and to attack it. Whereas I saw lots of students in my career that they were so afraid of making a mistake or doing something wrong, they wouldn't make a move on a project unless I was there to help them. And that's not the way it should be. You need students that are willing to try things, even if it's going to maybe be wrong. Also, we need to teach kids how to deal with failure. How it isn't a failure until you throw it down and walk away from it. But there's always a way to fix or to change or to make it work. And that's the thing that I think is so important with teaching industrial arts. If you want the next generation of designers, of engineers, they need to play with this stuff in high school. I'm sorry. That's really important to me, because I don't think a lot of people that were above me in the system really had a clue what we were doing. But it took me a while to figure that out. But anyway, so I thought that this edition would be the things that I think that are important for you as a shop teacher, as a shop teacher, to make sure that your kids get a good experience and that you're protected. So we're going to go through a few things that I think are really important when it comes to putting an excellent shop program together. Okay. So how do you teach a student to operate a tool, say like a jointer, safely? Well, in my opinion, it starts in the classroom. And it starts with some literature designed to teach the tool. Yeah, you're going to be involved in that and it's your primary job. But if you're dealing with, like I often was, with three or four different groups, 20 to 30 kids in the shop, you don't have time to personally teach everything right from the beginning. So another thing that is really important in the public system is that you have a paper trail that students were taught this knowledge. So this way, this is a package that I put together. I've mentioned it before. It's for sale on Teacher Pay Teacher if you're interested, but it talks about it's the beginning. So you're in the classroom to start. Yeah, the kids don't enjoy this much, but I was always told there were 3 things that you needed to do to have been seen by the courts as properly taught tool knowledge. First of all, you needed to complete an assignment. Then actually that's your 4 things. Then you needed to complete a safety test. Then there needed to be a practice or a demonstration that the teacher does. Then a guided practice, and then cutting or using the tool under the direct supervision of your instructor. It's okay, I can't count. I guess that was 5 things. But yeah, those steps are important. So when you are teaching equipment, don't skip steps. You need to be thorough. The bad thing is if you have students that miss things, and that way a video component would be nice as well. But anyway, it starts in the classroom and it works its way into the shop. And now that you've got students getting acquainted with the tools in the shop, other things need to be done that maybe they don't have a direct involvement in, but either you as a teacher or your facility needs to make sure they're taken care of. Number 1, you need access to a good sink. Okay, big enough that students can use more than one at a time, because at that sink there might be one or a couple eye wash stations, which are really, really important. You need a place that students can disinfect their safety glasses, and you need to make sure that disinfectant for them is there. What my protocol was is when you came into class, once we had talked at the beginning of class in the classroom, we went into the shop, and the first thing you did is you walked to the safety glasses area and you cleaned or disinfected your safety glasses before you put them on. That way it was always the student's responsibility to do that. I think that's very important. You don't want to spread diseases by sharing equipment or sharing PPE. So make sure that you have those things. A first aid kit, a well-stocked first aid kit, very, very important. Instructions on how to do basic things. Protocol for, I hate to talk about it, but severed parts, there needs to be a protocol for that. You need to make sure that your kids understand that, because they might have to, hopefully they don't have to help you, but they'd probably be involved in notifying you or something. And that's traumatic for them as well. So you need to figure out, or you need to have a protocol to deal with that. Maybe that's a separate video. The other thing that, like I have eye wash in here, I have a sink in here, and I have most of those things. I have a very good first aid kit. And yes, thanks to a viewer who mentioned when I did my first aid video that I didn't have anything for severed parts. Well, I do now. That's taken care of. But one thing I think I'm going to add, because at times adult classes are held in here, and I think the addition of an AED would be a really, really smart thing to have in this shop to make sure that everybody's experience goes as good as it should. The other thing, I'm going to get back to the school shop situation for a little bit, is a clean shop is a safer shop. Now, I fully agree that Students are responsible to put their projects away and to clean up as best they can in the time they have, the things they got out, the mess they made. And as a teacher, you often end up maybe pushing the broom around a bit at the end of class, or somebody didn't do a proper job and you end up dealing with that. But that's just a surface clean. I would have thought, and I had to fight for this my whole career, was that the school custodians should have been in the shop, I think, a minimum once a week. And no, not to put kids' projects away and not to do what the teacher should have done, but to do a general sweep of the whole area. That needs to be done. Plus, eventually, after hounding everybody for a long time, I got it so our custodians would come in once a semester and clean the dust off the pipes and all the big stuff. The dust collector we always dealt with, that was a clown show in itself. We'll talk about that in another video. Having students do work like that, like handling big, 45-gallon drums full of shavings, I don't think it's something you want students doing. And a lot of schools have just realized it's bad optics to do that, and they don't do that anymore. But I couldn't convince our school division that that was a problem. So those are things that, as a shop teacher, you need to be aware of. And if your kids are having to do dangerous things like throw barrels in, yeah, I don't know who's responsible for that, but in the end, you probably are. So anyway, those are the next things, making sure your facility is safe and everything. And I'm sure I've missed some stuff, but if you think something is important and I missed it, please put it in the comments below. All right, let's move on. And the next thing, making sure all your tools have the required safety gear on them. There are other systems you could run, and we'll maybe investigate that in a future video, but I like this the best, and that's the way I set it up. So on every tool, I had a face shield, 2 push sticks. On the bandsaw, this is my resaw bandsaw, a push pad, and the miter gauge. It's all here. Oh, I almost forgot the safety rules. Not some cheesy 5-rule little poster that you hang in a shop and okay, maybe it absolves you of liability, I don't know. But the ones that came from General and all those tool companies, I didn't really think were of much use. This is very thorough, and I always tell students, if you're waiting in line, read them. Or if you're not sure what to do and I'm busy, read them. So that way there's a constant reminder, and it's exactly the same as the paperwork, exactly the same as the test, and it's unified. And I think that's important. But anyway, having the right stuff. And I found that I got tired of drilling holes in machines to put them on, and I just put them on with rare earth magnets. And that way, and I labeled them, and that way students had no problem. They would put things back when they were done, and that was it. The one thing I am missing on here is a brush, and that I should have. Now, okay, that's your woodworking side. So you've got this on all the tools that need it. Well, what about when you cross the shop and you get into the welding area? Well, in the school I taught in, and this was my idea, my protocol, I would go talk to our welding supplier, and I would get a pack of 25 or 50 skull caps, and that way the kids could have them. They had their own. So when you're putting on a skull cap, it's in your hair, we had issues sometimes, or a few years, with head lice in the school. I didn't want my students sharing a skull cap. Like, just because you have 2 welders, you have 2 skull caps, I'm sorry. That doesn't work. You need to have 1 per kid, and welding suppliers usually are quite happy to provide them, because it's good advertising for them. Gloves was another thing that we supplied. We supplied the welding jackets. Sometimes they were donated. Sometimes we had to go buy them. And then, of course, a decent helmet or face shield. So this is all really, really important. And I think you also need to teach the students about the shades that are used for different types of welding and like MIG and arc and all that stuff. So make sure that that's supplied and you've thought of it, you have good equipment, your lenses are in good shape. Teach the kids to do that right away, because if they can't change a filter lens, uh, then you're going to be stuck doing that, and you can't tell when they can't see or not. So when they can't see, get them to bring it to you, look at it. Yeah, we should change that, and away you go. Here's the lenses. Okay, so having your workstations and your work gear properly planned out and set up is really, really, really important. So let's move on. Well, the next thing on my list is material and tools. So let's talk about materials first. It is your responsibility to make sure that your kids have something to work with every day. If you don't have material there, it's pretty tough for them to work. The only exception I made is when students built guitars, they were responsible for their parts. But as far as the wood goes, I realized early that there was no point in getting them to look for them because they didn't know what was needed. And so I started to stock some of that stuff, and that was an expense to me because I didn't always get paid for everything that went out, which was unfortunate. But it happened. So I usually bought wood from local sawyers. So I'd go to McDowell, to my buddy there, and pick up pine. And there's a fellow actually right in our community here that has a birch firewood business, and he would often cut logs for me and things like that. So we used predominantly birch and pine. I did play with tamarack a little bit. Not really blessed with great hardwoods in Saskatchewan, but anyway, how you got material, usually as cheap as possible, was required for the budget. For welding steel, the vast majority of my career, in fact, all of my career, the steel that we got was donated. So, it used to be known as Flexicoil. Now it's known as CNH International. In the Flexicoil days, it was much better. Those people were awesome to deal with. They would turn me loose in their scrapyard and say, "Hey, pick what you want, take it home." So basically, if I could lift it and get it on my truck, it was mine. So I really appreciated that. It helped me run my program way cheaper and allowed students to have repetition, because when welding's expensive to teach, and if you just have um, a little bit of stuff that they can only run a little bit, and you have to ration everything, I don't think you really learn to weld. A buddy of mine in Saskatoon often had his welders making things that made money for the shop, and that's genius. So if you can do that, welding is really good that way. Uh, yeah, materials, again, your responsibility. How are you going to handle it? Are you just going to phone your local hardwoods supplier and say, bring over 1,000 board feet of walnut? Oh, I dreamed things like that. But it's not possible where I live. So anyway, the next part of this is machinery. You're responsible to make sure the machinery is running and in good shape. So example here, my thickness sander, paper tends to come off every once in a while, or pine is really hard on those things. But you have to make sure that the paper's that the paper that is on is proper, that it's in good shape, that students won't be frustrated by using it. Planer knives, if you don't have carbide inserts, they need to be sharpened. Carbide inserts need to be rotated every once in a while, and then you got to make sure that the cutter head is perfectly clean, because if it isn't, you'll have little lines in all your boards, but that's another story. Bandsaw blades, you need to keep a backup of all your stuff. So if you have a blade break during class, that machine is not finished for the rest of the day, or until you go to wherever or wait for Amazon to send you a blade. You have to back things up. You have to have some extra supplies. So you're the guy in charge. You make sure that all those things that you need to run your shop without a lot of delay or downtime are there. Now, sometimes you can get help from the school division a little bit. That's wonderful, but I don't count on it. I think one of the reasons uh, there's so little support for this, mind you, I've talked to teachers of core subjects and they say the same thing. There's really no support. Math teachers end up buying all their own manipulatives and stuff like that. It's just not right. But unfortunately, it's a fact. And in the shop, if you want things to progress and you want kids to enjoy your program and choose your program, because usually we're backed with something, so you need to make sure that equipment works the way it should work. Okay, let's talking about projects. That's the next thing. Now remember, the project is just the vehicle. Okay, you're going to teach the good things like problem solving and self-esteem and all those things, confidence. That is really what this is about, but the vehicle is the project. And the project needs to be something that students are excited about. That's important. I guess for me, this always was a passion. I was a woodworker before I got into teaching, and the teaching allowed me to really push my own abilities as well. I wasn't a turner when I started teaching, but I learned. I taught myself. And as a shop teacher, you have to be able to do the things that you're teaching. Okay, you have no credibility with your students if you can't do it. And then they start saying things like, okay, those who can't do teach. Well, that's not true. So I don't know, like this is one of my current students, Kylie. That's a beautiful bowl. She's a grade 9 student. And other than with a little bit of minimal help from me with chucking and getting things in right, she's got a wonderful bowl there. So she's going to finish that tomorrow. Building guitars was probably the biggest boom for our shop. People, when I started doing this with students back in the 1990s yet, before the internet, people didn't believe, adults didn't believe that it was possible for a student to build a guitar that actually made guitar sounds. So it was amazing how my kids walked out of there like they were 10 feet tall when they had one of these done. In fact, my student this afternoon, we're building a little Telecaster. Another student's building a Strat. The Telecaster went from 2 pieces to 1 piece today, and I had one happy student. So those are the things you want to have. You need to have projects that are engaging and interesting. Now, if your shop is a trade-based shop, that's okay too. There are so many wonderful trade programs going on even in our area, but especially in the U.S. I think they're maybe a little bit ahead of us. But I don't know. It's nice to have something that kids can take home. When I did my welding training at it used to be SIAS, it's now Sask Polytech. We had to do welding coupons, and I kept all mine, and I used them in school as in my school as examples, and I still have them because I did it. They're important to me. So anyway, you need to make sure that your kids have that feeling. There's one thing that I've heard of lately, and it was a sub who was subbing at a shop that I know, and one of the other teachers was telling me that he was so looking forward to subbing in the shop because then he could do his own work in there. No, sorry, your job is supervision. This isn't your shop time, this is their shop time. So make sure that you don't get hung up on your own thing, and I think people who do that really don't understand what this subject is all about. And they just think, well, we're just going to go in the shop and play. What could possibly go wrong? Well, a lot, and you need to be prepared for that. That's why I don't think that they should have teachers in the shop that aren't qualified. Point blank, that's the answer. If you're not qualified, I'm sorry, you can get qualified if you could do that now. I don't think you even can in this province anymore. But if you look around hard enough, there'd be ways for you to make sure your tool skills were up to snuff, and that you could be a well-rounded shop teacher eventually. So yeah, I don't know. I've had a lot of fun doing this, but I would encourage you, if you're getting into teaching shop, that it's a passion. Not just the way that you can, oh, I don't have to prep for this. Well, actually you do, but most people just don't see it. And like I said, there is no support from central office for any of this stuff. So you're on your own. So anyway, be passionate, pick good stuff for kids to build, give them some choice. Don't just say, this is your project, this is grade 10, build it, and that's it. I don't know. Finally, if you do that for 5 years, then you've got siblings that have the same project at home. So try to make sure that there's some choice as well. Okay, well, let's move on. Full circle. We're back where we started. I'm sure that I missed a few things, and I didn't want this video to be an hour and a half long, and I already am longer than what I set for my goal length, but it's a big topic. So if you're teaching kids, especially in the K-12 or grade 7 to 12 situation, if you're teaching in a post-secondary institution, or if you are a member of a local guild and have people in your shop every once in a while, and you're responsible for instruction, it's important that you do those things, that you make sure that your kids are properly instructed from a legal perspective, to make sure that the shop is running the way it should, the PPE is there as it should be, the first aid kit is there. Everything that's there in case you should have an emergency. Heaven forbid you don't want one, but if it should happen, you need to be prepared. Teaching tools, like doing those demonstrations and watching kids' techniques and correcting them as they go. And one thing I left out is kids getting permission to run equipment. That's important. Not so much that you're going to let them use it, but that they've made you aware that they're using it. And if it's early in the semester and you're not sure about their level of safety yet, you can watch them, and that's important. To make sure that kids are excited about this class. That's what it's all about. I am extremely passionate about industrial arts and the teaching thereof. And programs that, and I'm not knocking these people for it, but when the phys ed teacher gets handed shop classes because, well, they think that anybody can teach shop because there's nothing to it. And that's why it makes me so angry that there's this huge misunderstanding in the school with the upper level of the school division that think that these programs are nothing. It makes me angry. There's so much going on, and they don't have a clue. So anyway, yeah, make sure, like I hit some of the highlights for sure. Make sure that if I missed something, please let me know in the comments, because like I say, I'm still very interested in this. And yeah, I think that kind of brings this video to a close. So yeah, remember to like, share, and subscribe. I'm sure hoping that I can get this video on my computer so I don't have to use my wife's again, because I'd like to be able to do this tonight. Yeah, like, share, and subscribe. It's a little bit demoralizing making all these videos and experiencing the really slow growth that my channel is, but I'm just going to keep at it and see what happens. But remember, this isn't a turning channel, this isn't a guitar channel, this isn't a welding channel, but you'll see little bits of all that stuff, plus blowing snow and mowing lawn. Tell you, a package deal. How can you go wrong? Please subscribe. Anyway, with that in mind, we will see you on the weekend edition, so hang in there. See you later.